Gary Chambers probably sitting over there in Chesterfield when
All
the room are
right.
coming on.
Hold on just a second, Dr. Paul, and we will get you going. Everybody can hear on YouTube, but now, attention, everybody. The views expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and or their affiliate and subordinate ministries and or nonprofits. So without any further ado,
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Happy Hour. It's the Happy Hour broadcast with old Dr. Paul and ordinarily Miss Nancy, but Miss Nancy is missing because Miss Nancy is at a Christmas party where she worked as a geriatric nurse for 32 years before she retired, and yet she's still just a sweet young thing. Anyway, I'm here, and I have a special guest today. You're going to find Sam Blaine to be very, very interesting, and what he has to talk about is definitely 21st century, as I say, not Springfield, Missouri, but Springburg, USA. Anyway, I want to say hello to Shirley Simpson, my former and my first secretary in St. Joseph, Missouri, home of the Pony Express, and where Jesse James met his demise because that dirty little coward shot Mr. Howard and laid poor Jesse in his grave. And a lot of history up there. And then friends in northeast Missouri, and we swing over to Chesterfield, Missouri. Beautiful, beautiful part of St. Louis County. And my friend Jerry Chambers. Jerry was a teenage boy when I was a pastor. He was in my church where I was a pastor in St. Joe, Missouri, a number of years ago, because Jerry is now a retired school administrator. So that'll let you know I was in St. Joe a long time ago. I was there in the early 60s, to be honest about it. Anyway, hello, Jerry. Welcome to the broadcast. And we're waving goodbye to Steve McAllister as he takes off. He's going to leave all the engineering duties to Matthew Dillon Pearson. And Jay Festus Cobb isn't here today because he's in bed with a bad back.
be sure and keep praying for him.
Yes, pray for Jay. Get him well. Get him out of the bed. We need him here. And Steve, you be careful heading back to Hollister, which is a suburb of Branson. And Branson is...
Jay is feeling a little better today, but he's going to go ahead and stay in bed for the rest of the weekend and see how
Good.
he is next week.
Good for him. All right, let's see. I want to also say hello to Judy Nickel in Bryant, Texas. She's a faithful viewer. And to, let's see, a new one, Dennis Ottolini, a friend of mine over in St. Charles, Missouri, and many others in northeast Missouri, northwest Missouri, southeast Missouri, southwest Missouri, where we're located, right in the middle of the United States of America, and in central Missouri, viewers we have there. And in Germany, and in Pakistan, South America, and France, il est très bonjour aujourd'hui, n'est-ce pas, mes amis, and in Kansas City area, including Dr. Jim Wining, president of Acts Ministry. So, having gotten all of that said, this is the Happy Hour. We're going to have a good time today, Sam. Are you ready for a good time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I ought to say, play it again, Sam.
There you go.
That comes from an old movie. Sam Blaine is in a unique position in that he has successfully been employed by his father-in-law for how many years?
It's 18.
18, with Atlas Security Company. Now, these are not guys that run around in cars that say security on them, semi-armed. They're not rent-a-cops. These guys do home and business security to protect your house. Sam, welcome to the Happy Hour.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I miss my right arm over here. I miss having Miss Nancy with me, my wife. Anyway, Sam is my neighbor. He just lives up around the corner from me. And so if I have any questions about my security system, I know who to call. And if he doesn't answer his phone, I know where to find him.
That's
Anyway,
right.
I know where he hangs his hat. My wife and I, Sam, we have been with Atlas Security a long time. I'm going to tell our history, then we're going to talk about you and the company.
Okay.
I go back to when Atlas was pagers. And a lot of people now, we have a generation don't even know what a pager is, but it was a little mechanism we could wear on our belt, and it would buzz and let us know that we had a phone call, and then it would print out the number, and then after a while there was a voice on it. But it wasn't two-way, it was strictly one-way.
Yep.
And I would come into the Atlas office once a month faithfully and pay my pager bill. Wore that pager all those years because I had to stay accessible to a flock that I was pastoring. Then later, we got into home security with you. We've had our house secured with you almost 20 years. We've lived there nearly 20 years, and that house was set up by your company before we moved in, and we've had it all these years. Now, tell us what Atlas Security does.
Sure. So Atlas Security was actually started by my wife's grandfather, a man named Marvin Britton. And Marvin actually, in the beginning, Atlas Security was a guard company. It wasn't that for very long. And so that was in 1962. So that's 57, now approaching 58 years in 2020. So he started that, and then 30 years later, 1992, my father-in-law, Jim Wade, took over the company, and he still is with us at Atlas, acting as president of the company. But Atlas's main menu, if you will, of what we do would be, like you mentioned, burglary systems, fire systems, access control, and cameras. That are kind of the four main ones. So
I know we've had a few times when there were attempted break-ins at our home, and it's very interesting, folks. When that happens, all HELL breaks loose.
Right.
I mean, bells, whistles, sirens, and blinking lights, and would-be thieves aren't very brave when that happens. They take off, and then they're. But you know, it's interesting, Sam. We've had signs there, very obvious signs, Atlas Security, for years, and every once in a while somebody still wants to test that.
Yep.
But we're thankful for Atlas Security. My wife and I, we put our alarm system on not too long after dark, and it stays on until we get up in the morning. We sleep feeling very secure at night because we have Atlas Security System.
Yep. And I think the part about, for me, people have asked me before, they've said, you know, do you enjoy what you do? You know, and the thing I love about my job is I'm born and raised here in Springfield, and I feel like I'm protecting my community. And so that kind of like, as I lay down at night, every day that I do a new system or I help someone, it makes me feel good that I'm doing something for the community that is kind of giving back, if you will. And I just really enjoy taking care of people, serving people, and it kind of goes hand in hand even with my faith, you know, as far as like serving and taking care of those around us. And people of all ages, you know, from young couples in their homes for security systems to big businesses to older folks that might need medical units or fire systems put in. We do all those things.
By the way, I'm glad you mentioned your faith because we are a faith-based broadcast. In fact, Acts Media Group is faith-based, and it's a department of Acts Ministry, which is obviously a faith ministry. It's a Christian ministry, and it was begun by my wife and I, Miss Nancy. In April, it will be 27 years ago that we received the call to establish Acts Ministry, and then in August, that following August, we officially incorporated it. So that corporation is 26 and a half years old. The vision is almost 27 years old. And folks, if you'd like to be supportive of Acts Ministry, it's easy to do. Just go online to actsministryinc.com or actsmediagroup.com. Probably the shortcut would be actsmediagroup.com. Acts is A-C-T-S, and you'll find the donate button there. And every donation is appreciated, and it is tax deductible if that's of interest to you. And Acts Ministry operates on a very small budget. There's no multimillionaires hanging around on the payroll here, and we we're just pleased that we are able to touch millions of people every month in the United States and millions more around the globe. And you can be a part of it and know that your dollars are spent wisely. We do have some needs. We'd like to expand and do more of what we're doing, and we need to bring some people on to run this media outreach full time. And volunteerism only goes so far, folks. So help us if you can. Go to Acts Media Group, press that donate button, and set up something. They'll help you even do something regularly every month. And when you do it, tell them old Dr. Paul sent you, okay? Now, back to Sam Blaine. I want to tell you, Sam, an experience that I had with our security system that'll be, I hope, hopefully be educational for folks.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a few years ago now that my wife and I, we'd settle in. We felt very comfortable at night, you know, everything secured. And our alarm went off. And the reason the alarm went off was because we did not have, I hadn't thought about it, we did not have our overhead doors to the garage, which is, you know, part of the house, did not have those doors armed. So we had, back in those days, thieves would collect garage door openers,
Yep.
and they'd go around through the neighborhood seeing which ones would work garage doors.
Yep.
Well, they had one that caused our garage door to go up, no alarm on it, see? And they came in, and when they got the walk-through door from the garage into the lower level, opened it, it was armed. And HELL broke loose. They ran out, closed the garage door, and they were gone. So guess what I did?
Mm-hmm.
Duh. I called Atlas Security, and they came and armed our overhead doors.
Yep.
So, and I've got new things where in order to get the code for the garage door openers, you have to be inside the garage. You can't get them from outside the garage. So we're very secure.
Mm-hmm.
We also have glass breakage and all that kind of stuff. So don't come messing around our house. You're going to be in big trouble.
That's what I
Thanks
tell
to Sam Blaine and the Atlas crew. Sam, I was interested when you mentioned something about medical. That's a big thing I notice now on television. Some older lady on the floor saying, "Help me, I've fallen and I can't get up."
True, yeah.
What are you involved in any of that kind of stuff?
We are. So a little, when I mentioned our menu earlier, the medical units are kind of a side menu of what we do, but those have come a long way. The old units that we had would be connected to a phone line, like an old school, what we call a POTS line. And if just a little tip or education here, POTS, if people don't know, stands for Plain Old Telephone Service.
Okay, I want to
So,
remember that.
Yeah, so it's funny. It's not that hard, but a lot of the more technical term is POTS, but really all that is just a old school telephone line that we all used to have, and those are kind of going away. But those old medical units would connect to that landline, and the system would really only work within the home. So you'd have either a pendant around your neck or on your wrist or something like that. You'd push the button if you'd fallen or if you need help, and then it would call Atlas, and then we would contact the appropriate authority, which would be ambulance, medical. And so now, as technology has gotten better, they move those to cellular, but you're still within your home. And so then the next step past that is they now have GPS units that you wear, and they work anywhere. So I can be, I live here in Springfield, Missouri, but I could travel to one of my favorite places, Destin, Florida, down south, and I can take that with me. And when I hit the button, we can locate wherever you are by that GPS. So it's cellular and GPS. So that's kind of the new technology that's coming around. So actually just last week we sold and installed a couple of those for some folks right here in Springfield that had that need. So
That's wonderful. By the way, folks, Acts Ministry, because of Dr. Jim Wining, has become really a 21st century ministry, cutting edge. If you can imagine the leading curve of developments, then the cutting edge of that, that's where Acts Ministry is. This is so appropriate to talk about today because we moved from landline for our security, which people could cut the line, to we're wireless now. There's no wire for anybody to cut
right.
to disconnect our our service. And so now this is another step with people with medical issues. Even if people don't have a known medical issue, it would be good to have this service anyway, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. Yep.
Because you never know when you're going to need some help of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen people use them in a panic type situation anyway that's not necessarily medical. It might be something that requires police or something like that. So it's got two-way voice. So as you push that button, if you needed help, whatever help that is, we're going to help you on the other end of the line, get the appropriate authority to you.
Speaking of police, our system also notifies police if necessary and fire if necessary.
Yep.
All of that's, folks. If you don't have a security system in your home, you need to call Atlas. The information is across the bottom of your screen for those just listening by internet radio and you don't see a screen. Sam, what's the best number for them to call?
Here locally would be 417-831-2866.
Okay. And you reach out 90 miles every direction from Springfield,
True.
basically.
Yeah, and I understand you have listeners that are all over the world.
That's right.
And my knowledge of even in the states. So if you had someone that's not in the Springfield, Missouri, or Southwest Missouri area that we don't cover, one thing I tell people that I recommend is find a security company that's local, that's been around for a while, and that maybe and I'm a little biased in this because I really love the product that we carry, and it's an interesting story, and I can tell you a little bit about that too. But
Sure.
the manufacturer that we carry is a company called DMP. It's Digital Monitoring Products. It's actually made right here in Springfield, Missouri.
Is that right?
It was started by the same man, Marvin Britton, that started Atlas.
I did not
So
know that.
it's very unique to us, but DMP has many, many other dealers across the nation. But we have a network of kind of a brotherhood of other alarm companies like us. So if there's somebody that wants to reach out to me and says, hey, Sam, I live in Destin, Florida, and I want to know, is there a company that I can trust that you can give me a recommendation on that uses your same product and is kind of like you? We have kind of a network of those people. And for me, on a side note, it's kind of job security. If I needed to relocate to Seattle, I know I've got kind of brothers in security up in Seattle that I could go work with or work for because I have all these connections with other like security companies that share our same values, same product line, things
Wow,
like that.
that's one. I had no idea that your equipment was manufactured locally.
Yep.
Give us a general idea as to
Yeah.
what part of town they are located in.
So the northeast part of town, so if people are familiar with Kearney and 65,
Right,
so the
uh-huh.
industrial park that's
Yes,
out there.
I figured that.
Most people haven't heard of DMP, so people have heard of products like whether it's Samsung or Apple or Bosch or some of these big ones when it comes to technology and things. But DMP stays a little bit under the radar. They only sell direct, so they're not selling in big distribution. So it's coming direct from them, which is very unique. But we love that as a dealer of them. But it is neat that it's kind of in our backyard in a way that if we need product, if we need training, it's right here. We can give people and some of our customers tours of their facility, and it's all made right here. And people don't realize this, but DMP is the last remaining security manufacturers of control panels that is made in the United States. So it's not to say we all have products that are made in China and made different places, and I have that in my pocket, with my phone, that's made somewhere else. That's not a big deal. But sometimes for people, they like knowing that they're supporting local, not only local in Springfield, but keeping that work. They have about, I think, 300 employees now.
Whoa.
There is some family, obviously, that works there, and there's a connection there. Side note, my dad has known and Rick Britton, who's the owner of DMP now, that's Marvin's son. But my dad is a physician here in town, and just to make that world a little smaller, my dad's the on-site doctor.
I did not realize that Dr. Blaine was your father.
That's my dad.
I
Yeah.
did not. He was part of OTC for a long time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I taught at OTC for 10 years.
Okay.
I had no idea of that connection.
Yeah, that's my dad. I always tease people and tell him I taught him everything that he knows. So I make sure he knows that. But no, my dad, I've learned a lot from him, and I really feel like that's part of the reason I'm where I am today is things he taught me, and there's one thing I'd like to share that my dad would appreciate that he taught me, and that I'll teach and been teaching my sons as well. But he says, Sam, if I teach you nothing else, a man is only as good as his word. And if you live by that, the rest kind of falls into place.
Your dad has been a powerful force in this community for good, especially on the smoking issue, tobacco use issue.
Yep.
He was willing to step out and be a champion when it wasn't a very popular thing to be championing, that is, no smoking areas and so forth. I'm confident he's one of the reasons why for many years OTC's campus has been a non-tobacco campus.
Yep, that's true.
By the way, the chancellor of Ozark Technical Community College, OTC, will be a guest on this show on January 17.
Okay.
So, folks, mark that down. We have some interesting and powerful guests. I want to get back now to the Atlas Security here.
Sure.
with the home security thing. Then we'll move into another area. But
Okay.
with home security, I am now, of course, wireless. But when my wife and I pulled out of the driveway this morning, I closed the garage doors with a remote, and then I pushed a button, and when the red button showed up, it was armed. Our system was armed.
Yep.
And I have a choice on the keypad of, a 45-second delay or no delay, instant. And I always set mine at night, instant. I don't want to give anybody 45 seconds to get in the house.
Yep.
But when we back out, I press that button. That thing is armed.
Yep.
Now, when I get back home today, I can take out it's a key fob
Yep.
on my keychain. I'll press the green button, and when it shows up green, that means the alarm is off.
Right.
Now, folks, I carry a cell phone. My wife says that when I'm buried, they'll put it in the casket with me. That'll be a neat trick since I'm going to be cremated, but they can put it in the jar with my ashes. Anyway, then my cell phone tells me that our system is armed,
Right.
and it also tells me when the system is disarmed.
Right.
Now, when I'm away from home, and maybe Dr. Whining and his wife Pam, they've shown up in town, and they want to go by the house, and we're not home, the alarm is on,
Yep.
I can use my handy-dandy smartphone,
Yep.
and I can disarm so that they can get in the house without HELL breaking loose.
Right.
Folks, there's a whole lot to this. I want you to take seriously home security. Before we get into the business use of it, industrial use, what about folks who live in an apartment? What can you do for them?
Well, a lot of people see that as a problem, and they say, they probably think I can't do that because I'm going to be drilling a bunch of holes that the landlord doesn't want and things like that. We do have options for that, and the quickest, easiest thing is to do wireless systems that actually you can use a really nice, strong, double-sided tape and put up, door contacts and motions, and we have wireless keypads that sit on stands that we're not mounting on the wall. We have control panels that also do the same thing. So it's not very invasive. It's a very short period of time, and so if people are there, say for a year, it's not a problem. We kind of pick that stuff up and move it with them to the next place, and you can mount some of those things a little more permanently, if you will, and then it can be used. Say you got a family that's growing and moves from an apartment to a home, you can reuse some of that, add on to the system. It's not limited to whatever you have at the moment. I always tease people and say, look, do your alarm system in phases, maybe as you can afford it. So maybe you can't afford this amount now, but my house is in like phase 68 of when I started, so I keep adding things to it. You mentioned the garage door. I didn't have a garage door contact for a long time, and what I found was, and how I came, and here I do this, and I had security on the doors, and I had glass break detectors like you mentioned. And even from my own personal home, I did not have my garage door, but I noticed as I came home from work around 5:30 or so, I'd come in and my wife would have dinner ready and the kids are there saying hi and we're talking, and now we're kind of going through with our night, and then next thing you know, we're putting kids in bed, going through our routine, and we lay down and we go to bed, we arm the system, and then I would wake up the next morning, and I would go to work, and I'd realize something, and you probably know where I'm getting, is the garage door was left open.
That's right.
And so here's the problem with security. Your car's in there.
That's right.
Sometimes people leave keys in their cars.
That's right.
Because they feel safe that it's in the
That's right.
garage.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't have deadbolts on the garage entry door
That's right.
because they have the garage door that shuts down. But then you have tools in there. You've got all kinds of things in there. And so what I did is I actually not as much for it was for security, but it was actually a reminder. So I put a garage door contact on that garage because when I was up in my bedroom at night and I went to arm my system at the keypad, it would say overhead garage door is bad or fault. And I'd go, oh yeah, I need to shut the garage. And then the second thing was now my garage is protecting. It's one more layer of security for my home. And so that's where I kind of transition as myself personally. And I love to tell those stories to people that are out there as well, so that they can learn from maybe the mistake that I made or something that I didn't do. And here's something that you might put a system in and 3 years later realize you're leaving the garage door open at night. And so I think it's powerful, to tell those stories. And now that I'm in phase 68, it's some of those are from customers' ideas too that they've done and asked me to do for them. And I go, wait a minute, that's a great idea. I think I should do that too.
Right. I really enjoy, is the best word for it, knowing that while I'm here, my home is secure.
Right.
That's a comfortable feeling. All of this, folks, by the way, we're not going to get into pricing now and so forth. It's affordable. If it wasn't, moi would not be doing it because I'm one of those famous people who lives on a fixed income, and it's a very fixed low income. So it is affordable for senior citizens, and it's affordable for young people. And I subscribe. I have a lot of computer stuff in our house. In my writing room, we have 3 desktop computers, two for me, one for my wife, and some other electronic stuff. And I get online and I see neighborhood associations, and people leave keys in their car. Their cars, they walk into the house. They're going to be gone, just in the house and back out, and their car's gone.
Yep.
Also, we put our vehicles in the garage at night because there are guys. Just the other day I read where somebody went through the neighborhood with a BB gun shooting windows on vehicles. Sometimes they just go through with a baseball bat and see how many they can break. So take security seriously, and seriously, it's affordable. Now, back to the apartment thing. A lot of people assume that because they live in an apartment, thieves are not going to think about them.
Right.
When I had not lived in Springfield very long. This is back, I moved here in August of 1977. I was single, rented an apartment. I left to be gone for a week on an evangelistic trip to southeast Missouri where I was preaching for, 3 or 4 churches there. When I came home, someone was going by to check my mail and so forth, and they found my apartment door ajar. Now, it was upstairs, so it wasn't street level, and right across the hall was another apartment, but my door was ajar. And so they had the apartment manager go in with them, to make sure that they didn't get waylaid. And then they shut everything, secured it. When I got home, I'm sitting there watching TV thinking, my TV's here, everything is here. They didn't take anything. And I looked down. Finally, I realized I had an antique oriental rug that covered most of the living room, and it was gone. And it was very valuable. It was the only thing they took. So they came in, they cased the place, and probably elected, I'm going to take that rug rather than a TV. They probably had a good supply of TVs already. Took that rug.
Yeah.
Now, if I had had security, that wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Now, with these apartments and these apartment units, can people control them from their smartphone?
Yep.
That's important because young people now live with this thing, and you younger ones, if you're living in an apartment, you can control your security system at your apartment with this, just like I do in our home. Now, let's go into businesses. Do you install some systems in businesses?
Oh yeah, it's about half of what we do. So people always ask, what's the breakdown? You know, how much residential work do you do and how much commercial work? And it seems like every time we run the numbers and look, we do about half and half. So we definitely do commercial, and we do everything from you know, schools to churches to businesses to small mom and pop shops to anything and everything. So I don't know if there's anything that we don't do. I'd say what's a little bit commercial causes us to do a little bit of different work, like more fire systems, more access control, where we're actually, you've probably seen, or people have seen, where, you know, there's a little box at the door, you know, and you've got a little fob, and you present that to the box, and it unlocks the door. People do that for multiple reasons. One, so they're not changing keys all the time and spending the money doing that. They can just simply change a little fob, and it's what's called a proximity credential. So they can come in cards, fobs, you know, all kinds of different things. But another thing it does is it tracks. So at a business, for example, if you were given a fob at our office, as you gain access to that front door, it's tracking all of that. So it's letting us know Paul came in at 8:30 a.m., you know, Paul left at 5 o'clock p.m., you know, so we know who's coming and going. It's a track of who did that. And so access control is a big thing. And then also cameras. Cameras are becoming bigger residentially than they ever were, but cameras have always been a thing commercially since we've been around.
Right.
So we probably do more cameras at businesses.
I also see a lot of TV commercials about cameras and their use right now. People stealing packages off of front porches.
Yep.
At entryways. You don't have to go just dealing with some company that has an 800 number on TV. We have right here in Springfield, which, by the way, I fondly refer to my adopted hometown as Springburg, USA. I love Springburg, USA.
Yep.
But right here, you have a company that does homes. They do apartments. They do commercial stuff, businesses, industry, and their equipment is built by their sister company right here in Springfield. Now, before we go further in our discussion, we really need to hear from Matthew Dillon Pearson, our station manager and today's engineer, about Natural Solutions Store. .B as in boy, Z as in
are you ready for that commercial, Dr. Paul?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
I'm having to do this a two-person job here.
That's
Hey,
right.
everybody. Welcome to the producer's desk. My name is Matt, in case you guys didn't know. Today's show is brought to you by NaturalSolutionsStore.bz. There are quite a few different supplements on here that will help you with your health as well as with chronic pain. The product I talk about today is Super Hemp Balm. It's one that even Jay from the Morning Drive is using as we speak because he's laid up in bed. And this morning on our show, he put some on his back, and less than 10 minutes later, he was feeling significant relief. And this is not something we wouldn't say that it doesn't work if it doesn't work. And I'm telling you, this product does work. I've used it on numerous times. When my back hurts so bad I can't hardly move, I just smeared just a little bit on my fingers and then rubbed the affected area, and within 10 minutes, you're feeling relief. And you'll be surprised by the relief that you get with this. And it doesn't make your head swimmy. It doesn't get you high or anything like that. It works. So if you want to have a little bit of relief from your pain, go online to www.naturalsolutionstore.bz and pick up a jar of Super Hemp Balm today. Back to you, Dr. Paul.
Thank you very much, Matthew Dillon Pearson. I call him Matt Matt Dillon, of course, and his usual sidekick, Jay, I call him Festus, I found out that they really weren't as knowledgeable about Gunsmoke as I am. But that's okay.
I knew who Matthew Dillon was.
Yeah, well, your sidekick didn't know anything about Festus.
Matt Dillon was my youngest son's favorite character from that show when he was just a little boy.
Festus, as you may know, was Ken Curtis, and he had a great singing voice. In fact, he was one of the original members of the Sons of the Pioneers. And then in a great John Wayne Western, Ken Curtis plays a cavalryman, and he's the lead singer when a whole group of soldiers show up to serenade John Wayne's wife at the Western Fort back in the old days. So Ken Curtis, Festus.
So what's your favorite Western?
I like She Wore a Yellow Ribbon.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, John Wayne.
Okay.
I have a couple of favorites. Number one is Tombstone.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a newer,
Right,
compared to John Wayne. But my second favorite is The Cowboys. A John Wayne movie.
Yes.
That's actually one of the, I think, 3 movies where his character died.
I like the Cowboys, and I also like Tombstone, and then the other one that there were 2 movies made close together about the shootout at the OK Corral, and originally both the men leads were going to be in the same movie, and they had a little falling out about creative differences, and so one went ahead, Kurt Russell, and made his movie, and about 6 months later, the one came out with, his name will come to me.
Sam Elliott?
No.
No?
Sam Elliott played in it. It was the guy that Field of Dreams did that movie.
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh,
So-
yeah, he's a good actor, too.
I
Boy.
compared those 2 online, the reviews on them, and Kurt Russell's movie was considered a tad bit better than Kevin Costner's. And the reason mainly was because of Val Kilmer and the role that he played as
Doc
Doc
Holliday.
Holliday.
Yeah.
But our neighbor down here in Branson, Dennis Quaid, he lives in Branson now, last that I heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he played Doc Holliday in the Kevin Costner movie, and I thought he did a terrific job. Anyway, now back to Natural Solution Store. I want to say something about that, then we go to security. I am a fan of supplements, and I am convinced, because of research and personal experience, that every person who is an adult ought to be taking CoQ10. It is great for the heart. Interestingly enough, doctors agree with me. CoQ10 is good for the heart. We have a lot of people now on statin drugs, and they say if you're on a statin drug, take CoQ10. Most of the doctors are saying that, the cardiologist even. Now, not only am I a supporter of Natural Solutions, and Natural Solutions Store has like 50 products online, and people purchase those. A little piece of that goes to help keep programs like this on the air. But I'm also a fan of allopathic medicine, which is traditional medicine. I have had as guest on this program a chiropractor who's been here 3 times. I've had a medical doctor who's been on twice. In March, my personal primary care physician will be a guest, a little lady, Dr. Jamie Durfee, MD, and she's looking forward to being on in March. I plan on having eventually my dermatologist on, who's another lady doctor. I intend to have my orthopedic surgeon on. By the way, the dermatologist is Dr. Misterovich. My orthopedic surgeon is Dr. Crockett. Plan on having him on. And so I have a few doctors and I'm very fond of my doctors, and I want to have them on. And your dad is a great example of a great MD. He bridges the gap between the doctors I knew as a kid and the doctors of today.
Yeah.
He really does bridge that gap. Okay, go to naturalsolutionstore.b as in boy, z as in zebra. Order something today and improve your life. Now, we get away from your physical security in terms of your health. We go back to, you mentioned, we talked a little bit about the medical thing. You mentioned something about fire a while ago.
Right.
Tell me about that. I
Sure.
know on our keypad there's a thing, about fire.
Yeah.
But what all happens with that?
Well, commercially, we do everything from full-blown fire systems. So for a apartment complex or just a business that needs smoke detectors hooking into. For example, we don't get into sprinkler systems, but we monitor sprinkler systems.
I see.
So what we do is we do more of what we'd call the electronic side of things. So if you had a sprinkler system in a building, anytime you see a sprinkler system, by the way, in a building, that sprinkler system is supposed to be monitored by an alarm system. So if that sprinkler head busts, and you've seen those happen where it's spraying water in the building to help, and I've seen those happen accidentally, things like that, but it's going to flow that water, and then it's going to trip the alarm, and it's going to say there's water flowing here, which means there's probably a fire here, which isn't always the case. But we do everything from full commercial fire systems. You've seen pull stations at the doors, so as you're exiting a building and there's a fire, if you want to go ahead and initiate, hey, there's a fire going on at this building, you can pull that down. Horn strobes that are letting people know that there's a fire in the building. So commercially we do that. Residentially we do that as well. So if you're in a home, like your home and my home were built probably in the late 60s, we were kind of grandfathered in, and there usually by code was not a smoke detectors put in the house by electricians. There might be smoke detectors there because you or I put them in from a little battery-operated one from Lowe's or Home Depot, but there wasn't one there put in by code. Now, residential code says you must have a smoke detector in every bedroom and in every common area outside each bedroom, or if you have a basement, you've got to have basically one on each level. So that's code now. So if you're remodeling your home and you're pulling a permit to do that, you've got to get it up to code to do that. Now, your house, my house, since maybe we haven't done some massive 80% of the home remodel, I just put a smoke detector up and a smoke detector down that's connected to my system, so that at least I have some fire protection that's being monitored by an alarm system and monitored by our central station. So that's kind of some different ideas. And then also, you mentioned at your home on the keypad, you've actually got a fire panic on the keypad. So if you were to see a fire break out and you're like, hey, before I attempt to put this out, I'm going to go ahead and hit this just in case. I'm going to hit this fire panic. I'm going to let Atlas know, and Atlas is going to contact fire department. We have that ability to do that. And there's no cost with that. A lot of alarm companies residentially will charge you extra just to monitor fire versus monitoring burglary. Our philosophy is this at a home. If you, for example, Paul, were to add a smoke detector to your system, you would pay just for the smoke detector. Atlas doesn't charge you extra to monitor that smoke, because our philosophy is we're monitoring your system.
Right.
So whether you add 30 window contacts and 2 smokes and 4 doors, and it's still the same amount per month, because we're monitoring your system, not worrying about the number of devices that are connected to your system.
All of this is very important, and it's apropos right now, this season of the year. Now, some of you obviously may watch this in the spring, even though we're live right now. You may be spring when you see this, but nonetheless, right now we're in the holiday season. I still call it the Christmas season. And last week we had a qualified electrician as a guest, primarily because we wanted to know about how to handle electric stuff and to avoid fire hazards during the holiday season, because Christmas trees and Christmas lights and so forth. And it was very interesting to hear a long-time experienced electrician tell us what to do about safety. Now, your backup is if you have a Atlas monitoring system and something happens, you have a fire, you've got an additional layer of protection there to keep things from getting totally out of hand. And they can.
And most people don't know smoke detectors are just the first thing. That's just the most basic thing that we do.
Right.
We do heat detectors. Heat detectors, the difference in a heat and a smoke, just for education here, would be you don't put a smoke detector in a garage. You don't put a smoke detector in a mechanical room. You don't put a smoke in certain areas. You don't put it right outside a bathroom that someone takes a hot shower and the steam can actually set those off. So in those different areas, you put what's called a heat detector. You can put those in the mechanical room, in the attic, in the garage, and it's only detecting a change in heat. Versus smoke is actually looking for those particles of smoke that's actually entering the chamber of the smoke detector. So there's different places for different types of detectors. And then to take that a step further, we've been doing more and more of these lately because it's now also becoming code, and you may not know this, but if you build a new home in Greene County, they're requiring carbon monoxide to be a part of the system. We can do those as well that are connected to the system. We also do natural gas, propane, so there's water detection, it goes on. And we have different customers that call us and they have their own stories. Like I just had a gentleman here recently that he had his sump pump fail. So what happened was the GFI, outlet that the sump pump's plugged into, it tripped, failed, the sump pump failed, and the water came up and he had about 3 or 4 inches in his entire basement. So what did he do? He called me and said, can you add water detection so where as soon as the water hits that detector, it's sending Atlas a signal, we're contacting you, letting you know as soon as possible. So there's a multitude of different detectors. We tell customers, if you can think of it, if there's something you want to detect, there's probably a way for us to do that.
I find that very interesting. I may have to come to at least level 58.
yeah.
Leave level 57, get to 58.
Yeah.
Because we do have a carbon monoxide detector, and we don't have a sump pump, but we're a split-level house, and furnaces and air conditioners pull moisture out of the air, of course, and we've had a few times when moisture got out into the downstairs living area, into the carpeting, which we got rid of, and we have something else down there now that's more water resistant.
So let me ask you, is your carbon monoxide connected to your Atlas system?
That I don't know. That's why I'm going to have to check and see.
And, I just want to let people know, having it connected to Atlas is better, but even if you have one, and I'm trying to just, give just some education here. If you don't have one, at least go get one from Lowe's, and plug it in so at least you're notified when you're home. The nice thing about ours is it's notifying you even when you're not home. So to give you a little quick story on that, my mom lives in Columbia, Missouri, which is about 2.5 hours north of here. She called me one night and she said, Sam, Atlas called me and said my carbon monoxide's going off, but I'm out of town. She says, it was kind of funny, I was laughing at her because she said, is it real? And I said, Mom, I'm in Springfield. You're out of town and no one's home. I'm going to bet it is, because those detectors don't usually, false. And so she found out that when she got home, it was real. She had the fire department come out and test for it, and her heating system actually was malfunctioning, and it was causing carbon monoxide in the home. Well, what she found peace of mind in is that she was notified of that and knew about it prior to coming home into it, even though we know that, even if we had a carbon monoxide there, as we walked in, we might hear it. But sometimes it's nice to know those things that are happening before you even get there.
Yes, carbon monoxide, folks, is odorless and deadly.
Yeah.
And I won't mention the name, but I remember when a former governor of the state of Missouri and his wife died from carbon monoxide poisoning in their home in the days before detectors, because they had a split-level home with the garage down below.
Yeah.
And automobiles are notorious for their carbon monoxide that they emit. And they went to bed one night and didn't wake up the next morning.
Yeah.
Carbon monoxide is serious. So even in an apartment, you get Atlas system for protection against burglary. It also protects you against fire. And if you are on the lower level, especially, you can have the water protection, but get the carbon monoxide protection because, folks, I've lived in a number of different apartments. The walls do not necessarily, if the walls don't keep out sound between apartments, they're not going to keep out carbon monoxide.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come through. It's going to be there. And you may say, well, the apartment next to me is empty. Doesn't matter. You need to be protected.
And actually, I have a great story with that too, in regards to smoke. As far as you mentioned the next door and the things happening, there was a little pizza joint here in town, and we had an alarm system in there, and we had a smoke detector in there to protect him if something happened with, burning a pizza or something happening with that. Well, next door, this was in a strip center, so he's connected to the tenants next to him. There was a children's store, and some people may remember this, but it actually ended up being arson. Someone actually set fire to the building. Well, that building and that system, that space did not have fire protection in it. So as the fire broke out there, the smoke carried over into the tenant space next door, which is the pizza place, and that smoke detector caught the fire that was next door, which called Atlas, which then we were actually able to contact fire, and they were able to, fire department, and they were able to salvage that building, and that guy's pizza place was completely intact with very little smoke damage. The one next door had more damage, but it could have been a lot worse damage to the entire building had there not been some sort of detection there. So some people say, hey, I'm just protecting against myself. You may be protecting against what's happening, next door.
That's right.
So
whether it's in a business, strip mall, whether it's in an apartment, it's all the same. Walls don't keep everything out, and protection is very, very important. Sam, I'll be checking with you about our water detection as well as our carbon monoxide and so forth. Our smoke detectors are not connected to our system. They ought to be. So
Sure.
I'm gonna upgrade.
Sure.
And get everything covered. Here, just when I thought I had everything covered, Sam comes on the scene, and I find out I don't have everything covered. But the reason I want to get that done, the protection I have is better than no protection at all as far as smoke detectors and carbon monoxide. But I want them to show up on my smartphone, so if I'm not at home, I know what's happening.
Yep.
That's important, to know what's happening even when you're not at home. We could talk forever about security, but we are getting down to the point where we only have about a minute to go, and my old buddy over there, Matthew Dillon Pearson, has given me the high sign. So we want to make sure that people listening by radio have the contact information. Give it to us, please.
Sure. So Atlas Security, we're located at 1309 East Republic Road here in Springfield. It's on the southeast part of town, on Republic, between National and Fremont on the north side of the road. So that's where we're physically located. Our number is 417-831-2866, and if you want to visit us online, it would be atlassecurity.com. So there's two S's in there, can be kind of, so it's ATLAS security.com.
All right, you've got all that good information. Folks, I want to stress to you that this is probably one of the most important interviews that I've done in a year and a half here on the Happy Hour, because this is where the rubber meets the road. Now, that is not to downplay the guest I'm going to have next week. I'm going to have Tony Hammock, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
And Tony is a great guy. He has his own show. What is it, Wednesdays? Wednesdays here.
9 o'clock.
Wednesdays at 9 o'clock here on
New
Action.
gold standard.
And it's what?
The new gold standard.
Yeah, the new gold standard. He knows a lot about gold and silver and cryptocurrency and all that kind of stuff. And it's his business, investments and so forth. That will be very interesting. So next Wednesday, you can listen to Tony and watch him live. And then on Friday, he'll be my guest and he'll be live. Can I do my slow close?
Can you do a faster version of it?
Faster version, slow close. Well, here's the faster version.
Medium close.
Medium close. You've been watching the Happy Hour broadcast with old Dr. Paul, minus Miss Nancy, who's missing today. She'll be back next Friday. Our special guest, Sam Blaine, Atlas Security, Springfield, Missouri. Get in touch with them right away for your safety, your family's safety, for the safety of everything that you own, or everything that you owe that you're making payments on. Get in touch with Atlas Security. In the meantime, a wonderful hello to all of the folks who watch us here in the United States and around the world. Look forward to having you with us next Friday at 9:30 Central Time, right here on the Happy Hour. See you then. Bye-bye.